STS.
This is What Means the World to You on NTS Radio. Today's guest is Gene Dawson. We're going to play you some new Gene Dawson so y'all can get familiar with Gene.
I promise I ain't no bitch, nigga. Squeeze quicker, my ligaments on the twitch hitting. Anyone that look at me foreign, 4 homies and 4 doors, semi-automatic weapons hanging out the window with a bitch. Funny, we just kids, blinded by the shit that makes us feel like shit. Loading hollow tips into a busted 45. Dare a nigga look me in my eyes.
Pistol and face on me. My niggas stay with me. They got them things on me. I got that aim on me. I got that weight on me. Watch what you say to me now. Pistol and face on me. My niggas stay with me. They got them things on me now. I got that weight on me. I got that weight on me. Watch what you say to me now. Pistol and face on me. My niggas stay with me. They got them things on me. I got that weight on me. I got that weight on me. Watch what you say to me now. Pistol and face on me. My niggas stay with me. They got them things on me now.
Right, you see the rims on it? You see the rims? You see the rims? That's 15, 20-inch spokes, you feel me? Them things, man, you ain't even, I got TVs in the car, look, right here. Portable, horrible, you know, feel me? Got the basket, he's in a bitch going to go shopping.
This is What Means the World to You on NTS Radio. I'm Theo Bark. I'm here with Gene Dawson. Hi. Tell us a little bit about that song, Bullfighter.
Oh, man. That record is one of my favorite records off of the album that isn't out yet. Me and my ex-roommate, Lex Stacy, were working on just like giving the album, to reiterate what I was saying, as me and my roommate Lex Stacy were working on the Bullfighter record, and well, first of all, we were working on the album, and there was like a bunch of moods that were in the album, and I kind of wanted something that was a little more technical difficulties. Yeah, they were like a little more on the electronic side, and I wanted to have kind of like a gangster rap, indie rock, because I came up on gangster rap, and I also came up on like, you know, rock music. So I wanted to have a record that represented both sides of kind of a culture that I was in. Being a Mexican and black kid, I was like going all over the place listening to a bunch of different music. So yeah, we came up with that record kind of inside of our dorm room, just instrumental wise, and usually we work pretty fast, so we finished that record probably like in 3 hours, and I was pretty stoked. I really liked it, and then sent it to my manager, and he was stoked, so we all kind of figured that we liked it a bunch, and we put it out, and people kind of gravitated towards it.
That's sick. So tell us a little bit, like take us back to when you first started making music. Like where did you first start making music, and when was it?
I first started making music probably when I was a freshman in high school. I had one of my best friends, like my brother basically, his name's Redford Stevens. He was just this kid that wanted to play sports, and he was trying to like try out for football, but he was garbage like I was. So we were both,
sports is overrated.
Yeah, I didn't make my black dad proud, but, yeah, so we kind of were just the kids that like really liked music. We were like music nerds. We had a homeroom together, and before I knew him, he went to football tryouts, and I didn't during the summer before our freshman year. They just wanted me on the team because I was like 270 pounds at the time. I was super big. Oh, damn. Yeah, I was a real big kid. So like I didn't have to try out. I just walked on the team because they're like, oh, he's big. He should be good. Wrong. And basically he would like freestyle for like homies in the locker rooms and shit. And my homies knew I loved music. I made music or whatever before that. And they kind of told us about each other. And the first thing he wanted to do was battle me. It's freshman year of high school. And then we ended up meeting, and he was like, oh man, I don't want to battle you. I want to be your friend. So we became like best friends and shit. And he had all the equipment that we needed to record because he was like starting way before I did. If it wasn't for that dude, I probably wouldn't be making music.
That's kind of low key how Havoc and Prodigy met as well.
Really?
Yeah, I think they were like, I think they met and they were like, there was like maybe a battle thing or whatever, but then low key afterwards, Prodigy found out that Havoc and his boys were going to jump him, and then they were like, "Oh, actually, you were pretty nice, so
we're not going to."
We decided to start a rap group together instead.
Well, story of Mobb Deep. Yeah. Ours wasn't as hard as that, but def some elements in there.
Yeah.
But I remember we started using. I don't know if you guys know what Magic's Music Maker is, but that shit's like old fucking British program that was like super trash.
Sick.
But we didn't even have like a mic stand, nothing. We like taped a mic to like a Nike box, and I always call it Niggamatics. Like we figure it out no matter what. And he like, I don't know, we made it work. So we started working together all the way until like my senior year of high school. And that dude taught me how to count bars. He taught me how to, because I started rapping before I was doing kind of like the more indie rock side of stuff. So I kind of apply what I know about rap music to all the other music genres that I work in.
Yeah. And how did you, like, what kind of indie rock were you messing with at that time as well?
Oh man. I mean, I guess at that time, it wasn't necessarily like straight indie rock, because not until I discovered Beach Fossils was I super into indie rock.
What about them?
Man, they like revolutionized, like their sound was revelatory. They had, they did something so accessible and so simple that made a wave of music come about. So now you hear a fuck ton of bands sound just like them, or it's like super drowned out vocals, super, super simple fucking, guitar progressions and shit like that. So that's kind of when I fell in love with kind of more the indie rock stuff. Before I was listening to like, I don't know, anything from fucking Manchester, kind of like The Cure. I mean, I love the Smiths and shit. But yeah, up until that point, that and like figuring out who Mac DeMarco was, which was a lot of turning points for a lot of people for like liking indie rock. And I know it's like super surface because there's some people like, yeah, I fucking listen to the Pixies and all this other shit. And it's like, yeah, that's cool, man. But like, I was a hip hop head for a long time. And like also my mom like came up only listening to hip hop and rock music because, well, she didn't speak English. My mom's from Mexico. So, I mean, the first rap shit I heard was like Too Short. And then in the same vein, she'd play a Scorpion CD.
And where was she discovering rap?
Oh man, it's a crazy story. Okay, let me try to make it super not long. But basically, my mom came to the United States basically when she was 17 for, do you know what Job Corps is?
Sure.
So she was in Job Corps, or her parents, my grandparents sent her because they're like, oh, we'll fucking give you a place to stay. We'll give you money weekly and you go to school here. It's kind of like a college before college. And they sent her off because my mother lived in TJ, it was Tijuana. And Tijuana, I don't know why I said it like a white person. Tijuana. And
been in LA too long.
Yeah, I've been in LA too long. And my mom didn't know a lick of English. And they're like, nah, you're going to go. Like, you're going to figure it out. So they sent her. Her roommate was this black girl. And basically that school was like not super segregated by the state, but it was segregated by like cultures and people that were into specific things. It was very cliquey. And she didn't want to hang around only Mexicans because that's what she had been doing her entire life. So she was like, well, let me see what other culture I can relate to. And the only other culture that adopted her was black culture. So her first boyfriend to this day, his name's Charles. He's a cool dude. I think he has a nice family now and stuff. But it was my mom's first American boyfriend. He was this black dude. And my mom was always had an affinity for black men. I mean, she saw him on TV and she's like, wow, what the fuck? I've never seen that before. And he introduced her to hip hop, like the early shit. Like my mom probably knows more hip hop than I can fucking even think about understanding. And she basically learned that that culture was just as accepting to her as kind of Mexican culture was accepting of my dad's, who is later in the story. But basically she went to Job Corps. My dad was on the opposite side of the spectrum though. My pops is like a Long Beach Crip, fucking military man, all kind of shit. Yeah, and basically he was like the only black dude in the Cholo set. And they call him Spooky. I don't know if I'm putting him on blast, sorry Dad. But basically like he was super into Hispanic culture. So randomly, my mom went to TJ. It was like she was already like 20 at the time, and they met at a like this kind of club that played hip hop music, but in the same vein, still played Mexican music. And my dad would go to TJ with his military buddies on the weekends and stuff. And then my mom met my dad, and basically like my mom still didn't know English super well, but she knew hip hop in a weird sense. So like she wasn't like, hey, yo, shit like that. But my dad pretty much gamed her up, got her number, and would call her and just be talking to her for hours, and they didn't understand each other. But for whatever reason, they would just like sit on the phone for hours and shit. And I thoroughly think if it wasn't for hip hop as a culture, I think I wouldn't exist, because my mom wouldn't have a feeling of like familiarity or like family in the States. So I don't know. Basically, she's the reason why like I made music in the first place, because she loved music so much. So to answer your question without being so long-winded is like she learned English through hip hop.
That's mad interesting.
Yeah.
I feel like globally a lot of people have learned English through rap. Like I feel like that's a common sort of,
yeah. Like my cousins that still live in Mexico and stuff, they've only been to the States a handful of times, but like I would take them old CDs and it was super new to them. So like, I was born in 95. Pac died a year before I was born. But I like, when I got old enough, I was taking them like Pac, 50 Cent and shit like that. And they can rap bar for bar, like everything that they say. They don't know what the fuck they're saying, but they know that they like it. Like to this day, one of my cousins like swears he's 50 Cent. It's fucking hilarious. He's like buff as shit. And he's just like, yeah, like Get Rich or Die Trying is his like fucking Bible.
Right. And what do you think it was about 50 that he liked so much?
Oh man. I think 50 Cent had like a silent way of being really, really intimidating. Kind of like the same energy the Game gives off, but like without having to say much, he's a scary dude. There's only like 2 people in hip hop that I wouldn't fight, and it's probably 50 Cent and like the Game. Everybody else can run the hands.
Word. All right, let's get into this next song. We're gonna play Beach Fossils. Tell us a little bit about, like, what were you thinking when you heard this Beach Fossils shit?
Man, definitely think it was, I don't know, more or less that it was some shit. And what's crazy is that like, who the person that put me on to indie rock absolutely doesn't listen to indie rock, which is funny. This is Red. Red was like, yo, there's some shit I know you're gonna like, because I've always been obsessed with like Bon Iver, Bon Iver.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Fucking guy. Super obsessed with it.
Justin,
basically. And for whatever reason, he's like, this is some shit I know you'll like. And he played me, I think it's American Football. And anyways, I went on a big ass deep dive and I was just like, yo, what the fuck is this shit I've never heard before? It was like a bunch of sounds used by guitar and like drums. It sounded so natural and so pure. And it wasn't like too aggressive to where I felt like I didn't understand it. Like the first time somebody played me fucking, I don't know, any like kind of hardcore band where it's like, this is cool, but I don't get it yet. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And this shit was like, wow, I can get it. For one, I can barely hear their vocals, so like, you know, super drowned out and shit. And that kind of, which is funny is because now I think that rap is the new indie rock in a sense, because everybody's vocals are weird and you can't really understand what nobody's saying.
Yeah, Playboy Cardi and shit.
Yeah, they're the new shoegaze. But yeah, so I think
that's a really funny idea.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about this with the homie Jake, works over at Matador, and yeah, we were talking about how indie rock and like fucking this new hip hop shit is like kind of hand in hand because they have similar elements, super simple to the point, but you don't know what the fuck they're saying, but it feels good. Yeah, and that's kind of I think what I thought when I first heard those records is like, I don't really care about what these white boys have to say, but it sounds tight.
Word. It's funny because it's definitely generational, right? Like where it's like My Chemical Romance didn't mean shit to me. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But there's all these kids that like, for some reason that made sense to them.
Yeah. Like, Lex, the guy that pretty much produced Bullfighter, and pretty much like 90% of my album. Me and him kind of like sat down and found the feeling or whatever. Super good at guitar, super good.
And you produce as well.
I kind of I'm like right and left brain with him. So like he's really hands on, but I'm like micromanaging. So
he must love that.
No, yeah, he learned how to he's super like patient with me, and I love him for that. Cause like if I was him and somebody was doing that shit to me, I'd be like, bro, no, like this is not happening. But yeah, so I loosely call it producing, but I don't know. I'm just a dude that likes making shit, so I don't really give it a title. But my train of thought left. What was I saying? Would you ask me for that?
Oh, we were just talking about My Chemical Romance.
Oh yeah.
It's just how sounds can be generational.
Super loves MCR. Like he made a whole, I don't know if I'm spoiling anything. I think he teased it or put it out, but basically like he gets really bored. He's my old roommate and I would watch him do weird shit. He got really bored after making like our albums because he made his own album too. And he was like, oh, I'm going to start learning how to fucking 3D design shit. And he made a fucking arcade cabinet made for My Chemical Romance. Like that was based on a song, and it's like some whole shit that he's doing with his project. But yeah,
that's crazy.
He loves them. Like, and I like get it, but I don't. I'm like that skips a beat for me where it's I understand why you like it. The elements of the songs are really fucking good. The main dude also is like a dude that does like comic book shit, and like there's a reason why he loves them. But yeah, I don't know. I just some of the shit I don't get and some of the shit I do.
Word. I feel that. Same, really. I mean, there's been like very few moments where there was shit just where, you know, like I think Juice WRLD was the first one for me where I was just like, whoa, I really don't necessarily understand this from jump. Like I understand why people like it, sort of, but I don't understand why they love it. Yeah. And are obsessed with it. And it's like such a cultural thing.
I think there's a lot of artists like that right now that make me feel kind of not dated, but like I also have like the heart of a hip hop purist, and not in a sense of where it's like annoying, but like I was listening to Def Jux and shit that people weren't really going out of their way to listen to. You know what I mean?
Wow. That's definitely like not, yeah.
And like that's
because that's some shit you kind of have to find at this point. Back when it came out, it was kind of in your face a bit more.
Yeah. And like, so I was watching fucking battle rap shit. So like sometimes when I like sit back and I listen to like the newer music, I know. I remember high school, it was like literally Friday nights. We would like, it was like Friday night fisticuffs. Like we were literally watching, like all fucking URL Smacked, like all that shit. It was just me and Red. Like in high school, we were weird. Nobody fucked with us. We were only two dudes that really liked music, and just like now having the perspective of how kind of music is transcended into this really, not music, but hip hop is transcended into this really like melodic space. I do enjoy it, and I know that there's a time and place for it, but not all of it's for me. Like,
right.
I've come to the conclusion, I'm like, I don't like this shit. Don't play it around me because I'm gonna get mad. But just like, I get it if I'm in a party, which I'm never in a party, and the shit comes on, I'm not gonna be like, why are they playing this? Like,
well, let's get into some shit you do like.
Yeah, this is that shit. Nobody knows about this shit, and if they do, then
fake ass fraud ass rap niggas. You on Twitter though? Where you hiding at? I'ma find you. Little word of advice, bitch, nigga, don't sleep.
Heavy duty shots out the Uzi into your mama house. Clip your mama on the couch. Now your mama running out the back door. Car bomb strapped to her black Ford. Won't make it out the hospital tonight. You see, I try to be a civil dude, but bitches can get it too. Lying to the Johnnies like these rappers doing interviews. It's wavy in the beach, for niggas crazy in the beach. It be smart to keep 380s where you sleep. I need a bitch like Brandy. We can make a baby in the Jeep. She drove me crazy since Moe. Sure, I really like to meet you. Niggas asking me for features, but nobody's talking monetary. Probably the reason why you never hear me. Tell all the girls, clap your hands. You coming out of them pants. I don't ask to make demands. I'm the motherfucking man. Can somebody tell them bros they coming out of them drawers? Swear to God I love you all. Where my round of applause at? We cashing all checks. Don't call the laws yet. My niggas dogs, no need to get them involved. Cause them guns come out like the summertime sun. Yeah, them guns come out like the summertime. Niggas bitch like Bowser. I pound her, you hound her. I never been sympathetic for simping. These niggas act like the women they crying over. Invite her over, dig her out, then kick her out. Raw dogger than dogger, don't call her till them kids is out. See, I take a different route with everything I do. With some little shit to me could be like everything to you. You could give a wedding ring to a girl you'll never screw, and I apologize for that. It must suck to be a fool. I'm tactical, been cracking hoes in secondary school. We trapping hoes, selling 4 or 5 for the price of 2. I was taught that the life you live is the life you choose. I chose the path of a winner. Now shake that ass for a nigga. Tell all the girls, clap your hands. You coming out of them pants. I don't ask to make demands. I'm the motherfucking man. Can somebody tell them bros they coming out of them bros? Swear to God I love you all. Where my round of applause at? We cashing all checks. Don't call the laws yet. My niggas dogs, no need to get them involved. Cause them guns come out like the summertime sun. Yeah, them guns come out like the summertime. Tell all the girls, clap your hands. You coming out of them pants. I don't ask to make demands. I'm the motherfucking man. Can somebody tell them bros they coming out of them draws?
Alright, tell us about this Vince Staples song.
I don't even know how Vince feels about these older records. I love Vince's new shit. I love his old shit. I think he's been outspoken about not really liking his old shit, but I don't know the man, so I can't really comment on it. But
I mean, I feel like a lot of people feel that way about their old
like
shit.
I hate my old shit. I think if you like my old shit, you're trash. But it is what it is. I think Vince, and he worked with, I'm gonna butcher his last name, Michael Uzuru. I'm pretty sure is his last name, but I'm sorry, Michael. They worked on this record called Winter in Prague, and during high school, for whatever reason, I kind of always been a hyper intense person, I think. I'm easygoing when I need to be, but kind of when I'm off on my own, I kind of shelter off. And I think this is kind of a product of how I grew up, kind of having to be by myself a lot. For whatever reason, this project, I would play it and it felt so right. Not only because Vince has in this, his voice developed a lot more in his newer stuff, but like his older stuff was very one-toned, but it sounded so serious and so sincere. So I don't know, when I would listen to that shit, it kind of put me in like, you know, like when you listen to a specific record, how it makes you get this like kind of like a coat of energy or like a coat of like fucking, like nobody can fuck with me right now.
Yeah, definitely.
And like, I guess when you're 17, you kind of feel invincible to everything. You're not aware of like all the bad shit that can happen to you. So you walk around like an idiot. So like, I kind of feel like that record as an entirety, or just that song, Water Park, kind of like illustrated a lot of how I felt about a lot of shit. So I don't know. I always loved that fucking record. That shit like meant a lot to me in high school.
That's interesting. I know the feeling because it's like when you first You're driving around, like the music that makes you feel tough or makes you feel like
Shook Ones.
Yeah, exactly.
The first time you listen to Shook Ones, you're not about to be like, oh, this is so nice. You're just like, yeah, nigga, like I wish you would try some shit. Like almost seeking that like confrontation, even though you don't mean to.
Yeah, I mean, and that was like the shit we would listen to go out.
Damn, yeah. Yeah, y'all was on some other shit.
But that was like high school where you're like, let's smoke like as much weed as possible and listen to like the most aggressive thing possible and then try to meet like girls.
That seems super counterproductive, but I understand it.
Yeah, the night ends like, oops, everything went wrong. And you're like, how did that?
It's because you're listening to fucking Young Buck.
Yeah.
Girls in the car, I mean, don't get me wrong. Girls love that shit too. They're not soft. I guess my mom's not soft because she don't like that. She's like, nah, this is not for me. Like, even there's some songs my mom's just like, nah, this is soft. Like,
right, because she loves the old school shit.
Yeah, so she's super hard. Like,
right.
Oh, my mom's a lollipop. She's super sweet on the inside, but unless you gonna bite down, you ain't getting there. Like, it's like, good luck with that shit. But.
So tell us a little bit about like your childhood. You grew up in Mexico in Tijuana, but you went to school in the States.
Yeah. So, probably like around like, not a later primary school was when I was crossing the border every day to go to school, in the States. My family was going through some shit. So my father was out to sea and, he's a military dude, military crip, go figure. And we had to stay with my grandparents in TJ, and me, my older brother, and my two older cousins, we had to cross the border every day. They were already doing that because they've been doing it since they were kids. And like, I went to some of my primary school in the States and then obviously like moved over the border or whatever.
Is that a common thing? I don't really know a lot.
I know that there's a handful of kids that do it in San Diego. I can't speak for every border town, but I have yet to meet anybody other than like my family who've done it, but I'm pretty sure that it's like common because for one, the cost of living in Tijuana is like very inexpensive. I mean, if you have like a, seasonable income, like you can have a nice place in TJ and be living solid. So yeah, we just moved for a while and I would kind of, I'd have to take a bus from where I lived in TJ to the border, which was like 20 minutes, and then walk across the border, which was like, depending on how early I would get there, kind of like 4 or 5 people were crossing, and it's kind of slow moving, so it takes like about an hour. Then after that, I would hop on a trolley.
So wait, 4 or 5 in the morning?
Yeah. So I was like waking up mad early. And then I would take I would take the trolley all the way to downtown, from downtown, I'd take it to 32nd Street. No. Yeah, downtown, take a bus to 32nd Street. And then I'd go all the way to North Park. So like commute from my house in TJ to San Diego was about like 3-4 hours. And I would do that shit for a minute. And then I'd do it back. And sometimes my grandfather would pick me up and then like take me back in the car. But yeah, so it was just.
So door to door, it's like at least 12 hours from.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was definitely a commute. And like, I mean, I didn't feel bad for that because I didn't know that it was like a fucked up situation.
Right.
Until I got older, and even my cousins, like, I'm so proud of them. Like, they did that shit from when they were fucking in first grade all the way to they were in college, and then one has getting her master's, and she's a professor at a university, and the other one's a registered nurse. And my brother's about to go to either Harvard or where the fuck? Blue Devils. What? Duke. Yeah, either Harvard or Duke. And we did that shit off the strength of like, my mom was like, yeah, we live far as fuck, but you're going to school. So she was always very adamant about us being inside of academia and being really, she pushed us to be the smartest that we could be so we would never get outsmarted by nobody. So although it sucked, it was really like a maturing thing for me real young. And then also I think that's the time where I fell in love with music because I didn't talk to anybody on the trolley. Me and my brother would take different trolleys. So I was like, how old are you in like 4th grade? How old are you in 4th grade? Like
8? Like 10?
8? I think 8 or so. So I'm like an 8.
No idea.
I'm an 8-year-old with a baby blue Sony CD player, some headphones, and like 4 or 5 CDs that my mom gave me. And one of them was a sugar-free CD, so I was listening to all
Sick.
kind of crazy shit, being dumb young.
She was like, you need to be up on this pimp game.
Yeah, for real. And that shit was crazy because I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. I just know it sounded cool.
Right.
And she
And
gave me.
were you listening to beats or like rapping or like what was it that you were into?
I think I was just into sound because I had that. I had a Tony CD. I had random. I had fuck.
I mean, because those are both really well produced.
Yeah, no, she
know,
was giving
artists.
me like good shit. Like the first CD that I ever like had bought myself was like Graduation. But everything pre that was like shit my mama gave me. Like she got me fucking a Common record. I don't even remember which one it was, but I was listening to Common. And then she just had a bunch of burn CDs from, there's this swap meet in San Diego. And they had like it was when people were burning records and shit, and they were just putting like a bunch of random songs on there and shit. So like I was listening on Jadakiss, Mad Young, and like random shit. And then she would give me like rock CDs, and like that's when I like got familiar with the Scorpions, when I got familiar with like AC/DC.
And at that point, were you like, oh, this would be some cool shit to sample, or is your brain thinking that way yet?
No, my brain was kind of thinking that it made me feel good, first and foremost, and that I wanted to study it because I feel like I'm a student more than anything else.
So you're
first
thinking
and foremost.
like how
did they do this?
How are the songs structured?
Exactly. Like
Right.
how did they make their vocal sound like this? And like I had no idea how to make a song, period. So all that shit, excuse me. All that shit was super foreign to me. Thank you. So I think by the time, I don't think I was even cognizant of wanting to make music. All I know is that I really loved the idea of rapping or making music because my pops, I only have so many memories with the guy. He's still alive and everything, but he's just always been mad busy. And one of the few memories that I do have with the dude is that, he'd play like Snoop Dogg records and shit, and I would like go like this as a baby, like with my hand, and my dad had like he had a Cutlass Supreme, and it was baby blue, or no, it was royal blue with a crown on the head, and that shit had Dayton's on it. He tried to give me that shit, but that shit was fucked up. Like the engine was fucked up, and he was like, "Oh yeah, you can fix it." Blah blah blah. I was like, "Nigga, hell no, that shit's super bad for the environment." Anyways, yeah, that shit's crazy. And yeah, so like I don't know. I think I was more or less like my mom would tell me stories, and my dad wanted to make music and stuff. Like to this day, I still have to fact check this nigga because he told me that he went to Polytechnical High School with Snoop Dogg, Cameron Diaz, and shit.
Crazy.
And he freestyled with Snoop in the bathroom. And I'm about to ask this nigga Snoop. For one, I'm gonna be like, why was you in the bathroom freestyling? That's weird. And did you know my dad? Because if I catch him slipping, he might have to run my hands. Because I've said that to all my friends my entire life. I was like, my dad used to rap with Snoop Dogg, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so
That's
I think more or less to answer your question, because I'm not trying to be super long-winded, but it was more so when I was listening to that music, I was like admiring it as a kind of like a student, like, fuck, this is crazy. So yeah.
And do you think because your dad is telling you like, oh, you know, I seen Snoop in the bathroom, whatever, like, do you think that you were like, oh, rap is accessible? Like these people are real people that my family knows even?
Yeah, definitely. I think for one, cause my dad is like the fucking freestyle king. This motherfucker you get him some Patron and like, just whatever, he will rap at any fucking family function. That shit's fucking hilarious. But he actually can rap, which is weird. So just off that, as a kid, I was like, damn, people can actually do that. Like that's kind of a thing. And then like also there's stories that I didn't get to meet my dad's mother, Grandma Pat, but apparently she was like kicking shit too. And like to this day, like my family's like, yeah, you get your talent from Pat, blah blah blah. And I'm like, I don't know Pat, but it sounds like she was hard body. So I think part of me wanting to make music or being able to make music was like kind of a correspondence of my dad not being able to make music because he was making dumb decisions when he was young, and my grandmother passing away young. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm the one in the family that actually like gives a fuck about music, so let me try. So I'm just the weirdo in the family. Like my brother business school, and my fucking sisters are like all just like dedicated to their job. I'm like, what you doing? I'm like, making some music. I don't know. Like, I don't know what to tell you, but yeah. So
I guess they have to be able to respect it, just because if you're coming at it from such a studied perspective, it's not like you're just like, fucking around.
Yeah. I mean, and I've met like a handful of friends, not even friends, but like people in high school that like, damn, I'm gonna go there. Basically in high school, a lot of the reason why my album is called Dead Friends is because, or not Dead Friends, I'm sorry. A lot of the reason why it's called Bad Sports is because I was super trash at sports, but I was real good at music. And all my homies were super good at sports. And then a lot of them, unfortunately, my friends that were really good at sports, it sucks because they didn't really get to pursue it after high school, which happens to a majority of them. But since I was making music, they kind of see the progression, and they hadn't had that progression with sports. So a lot of them niggas now like work at fucking FedEx office and shit. Right. And I'm like, this is not what you wanted to do. But
I mean, a lot of rappers that I know work, if they're lucky, at FedEx.
Yeah, I mean, and no shade to nobody that works at FedEx. Y'all really helped me with my Xerox.
No, it's
no, I mean, you work at FedEx. Oh, damn, they gonna take my packages and shit now.
Yeah. No, I think there's definitely like something to be said for pursuing. I think the thing I was thinking about a lot when I talk to like young artists is like, if you don't quit, then you already are ahead of everybody, because most people are going to quit.
Yeah.
Or most people are going to get realistic and get a job or whatever it is.
Or do the opposite, where they just all of a sudden want to start rapping because they see that it's popular.
Yeah.
And then they end up being trash. But I think I didn't get serious until like I was like, asked my mom for like piano lessons and shit, and she's like, I ain't paying for that shit. So I started bagging groceries up. Like when I was in 6th, 7th grade, I would like bag groceries at, I'm about to put them on blast, I don't care, at the naval base. And I was like hired under the table. And
that seems like pretty obviously illegal.
Yeah, super illegal. Military needs to tighten up. I'm snitching on them. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Basically I was bagging groceries for tips only and shit. So like I was taking old white ladies' fucking carts to their car, and they like flip me quarters and shit, and I'd just be irritated, but I wanted to make music. So I was like, if this is the only means of me making enough money to like pursue something that I really want to do, I might as well really go to it. So like, I can't talk shit about nobody doing what they got to do to get to where they got to be at, because at one point I was for sure bagging groceries and shit. But now it's like, I think I pushed myself so hard that nobody could ever tell me I couldn't do something. The first person to tell me I couldn't do something, I did something the exact opposite of what they told me not to do. And it's like one of the most successful things I've ever done. And
which is what?
Make a indie rock song.
Who told you can't make an indie rock song?
I don't want to drop his name because he's a bitch.
But so someone told you can't do that.
Yeah. Somebody was basically like, it was somebody from back home, like somebody that I thought was a really cool person. And I remember just going up to him and then like playing them the record, and he was like, this is cool, but like, why are you doing this? Like, why don't you just rap like you should rap like a little black kid? Like just be a regular black kid type shit. And I was like, I am a regular black kid. You can still throw these hands, but I could still play some music that has some guitar in it and have these little white boys going crazy because I am who I am, and nobody's going to tell me I can't do something.
Do you think he was scared that you might be better at something, or that?
No, I just think that I don't like when people trying to instill fear in me for something, unless it's reasonable. It's like, I'm not about to go out trying to fight somebody and the homie's like, bro, don't do it. He has a gun or some shit like that.
I just think, cause it's like, I think people always want everyone to stay in their lane, but it's also a way for them to easily sort of like stick you in you know what I mean? It's like, it's so much easier for people to wrap their heads around what you're supposed to be if they've already told you where you're supposed to go and what you're supposed to do and what you're allowed to do and blah, blah, blah. I feel like older generations really feel threatened.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like, even when I show like my pops my music, he told the family, he's like, yeah, he's rapping, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, nigga, I haven't rapped since I was in like high school. I'm not making rap music no more. And then I finally kind of showed him the album. He's like, oh, so you're like Outkast. And I'm like, if that's your only frame of reference, I'll take it. Like, that's cool to me. Like, I'm cool with that. I'm not mad at that.
Yeah. That's funny.
But yeah, like,
I just was, cause I feel like when older generations talk about like millennials, or they talk about like these kids, like they don't have any rules. They do whatever they want. They think they can do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, does it threaten you so much that people actually can just
do it?
Yeah, whatever they've kind of put their mind to.
I think at a certain point, when you stop, well, I always think when you stop listening to people don't not take advice because people that are like family or somebody that's obviously trying to like give you some game because they love you, not because they're going to benefit from you. Those are the people to listen to. But when somebody's giving you advice just because they have a mouth, those are the people to not want to watch out, because they're either knowing they can't profit off of what you're doing, or they can't fully understand what you're doing.
Sure.
And that scares them too, because the biggest human threat is misunderstanding, in my opinion.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I mean, that's where we're at right now in the country, in the world. But, also I just think it threatens people, because then they're like, damn, imagine what I could have done if I had put my mind to it or tried.
If I had actually gave a fuck about what I was talking about, where would I be at?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people had aspirations to do something, and the first person that told them to not do it, that they listened to it, and then they feel threatened that you actually did it. Like, that can never work. It's like, how would you know? You don't know nobody that's ever looked out for anything that they wanted. You wanted to become a fucking social worker? Like, if you did and you actually did it, like, that's fucking sick. But there's hella kids in college that I had went to school with, and they're like, I don't know, I'm going to go to business school because it makes a lot of money. And it's like, if you're only in it for the money, you're about to be 40, upset at everybody, and have a beer belly.
Yeah, I mean, definitely you can fail at anything. So
yeah.
All right, let's get into this makeout videotape.
Yeah, take the edge off, man.
So tell us about that song,
Future Boy by Makeout Videotapes.
Yo.
Yeah, that shit. When I found this random ass link to I think it's like a band or a group that Mac DeMarco was involved in. And I'm pretty sure it was like his old band or some shit like that. I didn't do deep research because I don't be caring. But that Makeout Videotape project that record is on was like a super pivotal moment for me, I guess, in music. It was my freshman year of college, and my ex at the time, well, my girlfriend at the time, lived in San Francisco. I had a relationship that lasted basically like 10 years. And I'm only 22, so that's crazy.
So where did you meet her?
I met her in middle school in 6th grade.
And that's in San Diego?
States. Yeah. Okay. So I had moved to the States or
and
whatever.
Then you guys go to school together up north?
So we went to school together from 6th grade to 12th grade. And pretty much my freshman year of college. So we dated for from when I was like 10 to when I was 20, off and on, and we had other relationships and stuff. And basically me and her, she was like the love of my life, I thought. I mean, even to this day, I still have a lot of love for that girl in my heart, but
that's tight.
Yeah, she's an amazing person. We had grown up together basically, and during that time of transitioning from high school to where we were going to go to university, we wanted to go to school super close to each other, and we weren't able to. And basically she went to USF, it's the University of San Francisco, and I ended up going to Cal State LA. And basically, we figured out a way to see each other. We were going to do the long distance thing. And we basically found Megabus. You know, like Megabus or Bolt Bus. It's like, if you book it far enough in advance, you can get like $1 ticket, and they'll take you like to San Francisco from LA. Or like, the most I've ever paid on a Megabus was like, that's a plug. Megabus needs to send me a check. Basically would get like, the most I'd pay for a ticket was like $20. So I was going to San Francisco like every weekend. My freshman year, or my first year of living in LA, I didn't know nobody out here. I had very few friends except for my dorm mates at the time. And I remember listening to that record going up to San Francisco so much. For whatever reason, it just made the ride feel so much shorter. For one, because I admire the music.
What do you admire about it?
It's so rough around the edges, and it sounded so, there's something about like the coarseness of like the guitar. And just what Mac's singing about, because Mac's always been kind of like a soft boy to me. Like, the music that he makes is very lovey-dovey and shit, and I really love it. But just about that record, it felt like some teen angst shit that I was still kind of caught in, and being like very, not angry, but passive aggressive about shit. And I felt like that record definitely like emphasized that emotion, especially going from LA to San Francisco and having to deal with having a girlfriend that was super far away and not knowing nobody in LA. So I only felt like the only thing I could do is run to San Diego or run to SF, and I wasn't gonna go back home. So I was opted to go see her. So during that time, that record just kind of encapsulates like all the feelings that I had.
Yeah, it seems like that was a really familiar experience for you in terms of like being on some form of public transportation.
I fucking hate public transportation.
And like listening to music and being inside your little like headphones space.
Yeah, and I think that kind of became, always being in transit became kind of like how I like lived. And up until now, like I don't really like going nowhere. Like if I have to drive to San Diego, I get fucking over it. I'm like, fuck, it's 2 hours. I gotta be driving, all this other shit. And then like, it's not super far, but like, yeah, I was like really cool with it at first. And now it's just like, I can't do it. But
you had traveled at that time. Like you'd been to other countries.
Yeah, definitely.
You've been to Japan
several times. And,
what was that like coming from sort of like from Tijuana and then San Diego?
What's crazy is that when I first went out to Japan, it's crazy because like sometimes my tongue will like tie itself and I'll start speaking Spanish to somebody Japanese just because my brain's like, oh, they don't speak English, they speak Spanish.
Right.
And like me and my older brother, the first time we went out there, we were like literally like, oh, con permiso. It's like, excuse me. And the people are like, what the fuck are you saying?
I get it. I do the same shit.
Yeah. And it's just like, what? But
yeah, you default to,
yeah, what you know. And I think,
or just like what you use when you're in a foreign place or
another
whatever.
country.
Yeah,
exactly.
I do that all the time. And I was like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. I'm in London.
Yeah. So, Japan was like definitely a place where I think I found when people go soul searching and shit, I think I found a lot of myself in Japan. Crazy, same thing in transit. Like, we're taking trains everywhere.
Sure.
Because that's the main mode of transportation in Japan. And I had a fuck ton of ideas in Japan, and I had no way of making them up until like the second time I went, where I was like able to make music out there. But I think that those trips to that country allowed me to have a different perspective on the same cultures that I had faced in the States. Like, Japanese people love black culture. It's crazy. And I remember when I was out there too, I was listening to a lot of Nirvana, which is random, but that's kind of when I got into a lot of why I liked kind of like garage sounding rock and very like fucking Seattle and like all this other shit, was being in another country. So it's crazy. I like come into different modes of music depending on where I'm at. It's kind of situation based, but
I totally relate.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have all the playlists I used to make would be for a city or a place that I was going to go to.
It's just crazy. Like,
but then I listen to it here because it's what I listen to there.
Yeah. Like it's crazy. Like, I'll be in TJ, like I'll go over there. Whenever I go to San Diego, I'll go visit family in TJ because my grandparents still live out there, and I'll listen to the fucking Section Boys, like grime music. And like, I'm bumping like straight grime in Mexico.
Sure.
And like, this shit's super just like removed, but it makes sense to me. It's like this environment for this song. Like, there's so many projects that I've done that with where I'm just in Mexico and places that I've grown up, and I'm listening to a music that's super removed. And I feel like that's kind of what I want my music to feel like, where it's in a space that it almost has never been invited to.
Interesting.
And it kind of plays well because it's like I'm forcing.
Yeah, you're gonna like this shit.
You're gonna like this shit.
You're
like,
gonna listen to me.
Like,
yeah.
We're gonna take fucking indie rock to Compton.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna take that shit to East Dago. Like, that's where I want kids to feel like, have you heard of this kid? He's like me, but his music sounds nothing like I do. And that's kind of like how I feel about a lot of artists. Like, there's a lot of artists that I deeply adore, and I have nothing. I feel like it's at home when I listen to their music, but there's no connection between us. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let's get into a new song as we exit. This is a new and unreleased song of yours. Yeah,
it's called Napster. It's by me, Hoskins, and my boys 23rd. They're from the UK and shit. This is probably the next single for the album, so yeah.
NTS